doing good stuff. Maybe I'll click. Oh no, not yet. Not ending the stream. In the stream, double clicking buttons. So, hey, welcome to the podcast. My name is Kent Pycat Gruber, and I'm joined today with two friends. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Hello, I am Nathaniel Ferguson, also known as Qantas, and then we're also joined today with a special guest.
Hi, I'm James Green, GreenJam94 on Twitter, or some people call me InfosecCaptainAmerica.
Yes.
Ooh, I like that name, InfosecCaptainAmerica. I could see it.
And I want to start with the actual origin story of the handles. How'd you end up with the Captain America relation to InfoSec?
Yeah, so the Captain America one's that's a hacker name given to me by InfoSister. So
Okay, nice.
yeah, back when I was first starting out, I would do a bunch of conferences with Amanda. So we'd go to Circle City Con, meet up, or like see her there, or ShmooCon, and sometimes we'd split a hotel room. So just when we were hanging out, she was introducing me to people, and she's like, "Yeah,
Nice.
this guy, the one that looks like Captain America, that guy," and it stuck.
Yeah, I can totally see the resemblance. Yeah,
Yes,
totally makes sense.
That makes so much sense now.
Yeah, you got to work on the body still, but it works.
I like it. I like it.
Well, other than being a superhero, probably in your spare time, what do you do for your job? What are you up to?
Yeah, so for my job, I'm a developer at Offensive Security, the guys that put out Kali and the OSCP.
Nice.
So my day-to-day is just building websites for that. Yeah.
So you're pretty
Very
much
cool.
doing
Big fan of Kali.
Yeah, you're pretty much at my dream company, Offensive Security. Love that company. They're amazing.
I thought the same way. As soon as I, got that offer, jumped ship from the old job, I was like, yeah, I'm working for them. Can't say no. Like, no questions asked, no rebuttals from the previous employer. Just, I'm working for Offset.
Yeah, for real. Like,
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely
amazing.
That's awesome. And then, what do you do in your spare time? What kind of things are you up to?
Yeah, so most of the time now it's just training. So I'm still trying to get the OCP personally. It's been a long struggle for me. Right now I'm working on a new Udemy course from the Cyber Mentor and going through IPSEC videos, working with friends in MISEC just to learn more before I reattempt the PWK course again.
Now, I'm not familiar. What videos are you going through?
Oh, so one of the members on HackTheBox also makes some of the paid labs. His name is IPSEC, IPPSEC, and he posts videos as soon as the box retires from the public labs. He has like a whole video walkthrough. It's been really informative for me. It's got sometimes it's one or two ways to hack a different box, and it's been really informative.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool. I haven't heard of that before, so I'm definitely gonna have to check out those videos. Has he done a bunch of them? Like 10, 12, 20? How many videos do I have to go through?
Oh,
I think he's up to like almost 100, right?
Roughly.
Yeah, closer to 100.
Oh, so he's got a lot. Okay, got you. That's cool. That's awesome.
If you've ever heard of NetSec Focus, TJnull wrote an article about how to prepare for the OSCP, and he's got a list of machines for HackTheBox and VulnHub. I think almost every single box in those lists, IPSEC has a video for. So it's really helpful that way.
Yeah,
I could definitely see that being helpful material, especially for those attack style certs.
Oh, definitely.
Now, do you have HackTheBox VIP yet?
A little bit. I've played with it before. I know you can spin up retired machines, but right now I'm just not paying for it, so I have a regular account.
Gotcha.
And then I think it's worth diving into real fast. What is HackTheBox?
Yeah, so HackTheBox is basically a lab environment that somebody else is hosting. So a lot of the times when people are starting out hacking, you hear about you just need practice. You need to, download a VM from VulnHub or build a home lab or do something.
Right.
It's hard to build out something that's really intricate. It's expensive to do. You need the right resources. You need to know how to do it. HackTheBox is basically a paid service that does that for you. So all you need to do is, you need to hack your way into their system, create an account, which is a nice little, web app hacking challenge. and then from there you get a VPN pack. You can join their system and basically attack any of their public machines while they're in rotation. And if you have a paid account, you can spin up old retired boxes.
Yeah.
Nice.
And you can
No
also
kind of attacks.
You can also build your own VMs as well. So like if your main jam decided in the future, he could build out his own VMs and publish them as well on HackTheBox.
Yeah, I think all of the machines are community generated. So people that have accounts are uploading their own content, which is really cool.
Yep.
And then what kind of like content is the community generating? Like in terms of like how intricate are the attacks? Are they web app focused? Or how does that all work?
Oh man, HackTheBox in particular has a wide range of stuff. I've seen, one specifically around web apps. I've seen ones that are just like a misconfigured Drupal installation. And then their paid labs are even bigger. There's one called like Offshore, I believe it's called.
Mm-hmm.
They have like entire Windows Active Directory setups that you can start poking around with or things like that. So wide range of difficulty. Yeah.
Cool. And then what's sort of like your preferred method for how you like study for like the rather broad offensive security certs? Like what's your kind of preferred method?
Oh man, preferred method. That's still something.
Preferred methods.
Yeah. I guess the methodology is always the same. You just, you hear about like the hacker methodology where it's, information gathering, scanning, finding vulnerabilities, trying to exploit them, and then get higher privileges from there. And you kind of circle through that. So if you're doing boxes like that in HackTheBox, just try to keep cycling through that for each machine. As far as learning goes, I'm taking whatever content I can get. I'm writing all the notes I can, and then manually going through what I can myself. Not just following the videos, but trying to recreate it so I can do it without looking. Yeah.
And then as a kind of basically a web developer in your day job, and let's say you're doing these web application attacks, do you see like your backend experience as a web developer able to help you basically diagnose what the problem could be or what the flaw is, the vulnerability is in the application?
Oh, for sure. I think I've had a much easier understanding with like the top 10 web vulnerabilities. I can kind of latch on to like whether something's SQL injection with a database or something that's just affecting the front end. I understand the client server aspect really well. What I'm personally struggling with is like when it gets down to like escalating privileges on a operating system. So like when it gets down to Windows and how I need to go from a regular user to an administrator, that's where I really need to practice. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So the labs that they basically have you set up, you would have to not only have web app experience, you also need to have like those kind of fundamental like OS privilege escalation kind of knowledge, system administration, if you will. Mm-hmm. So it's really that's kind of cool to know that it's that broad.
Yeah, it's
having not gone after the search. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of them are like if you've ever seen the like boot to root challenges. It's that same thing where it's not just a web app, but also getting into the operating system itself, creating a user, getting root, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Now, have you ever, being the fact that you do have web development background, that's what you mainly do, have you ever looked into bug bounty, or have you done bug bounty before as just like a side part-time thing? Are you able to do bug bounty because of where you work, or
I believe
I
think I'm able to. It's just finding the time to do it. So right now I'm working as a full-time job, and then I'm studying in my free time. So finding time on top of that to focus on a bug bounty has been difficult. Mm-hmm. But I checked out, HackerOne and what is it, BugCrowd?
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, one day I hope to be doing more of that as a side hustle type thing, but one thing at a time.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it is the dream to just sort of find bugs and make money like magically in your spare time,
Oh yeah, exactly. You see these there's some article about like the 18 millionaires or something out of HackerOne, like the top hackers are just rolling in money now, and it's like the kids getting famous on YouTube, and we can do that too, right? And it's just
Right, totally, yeah. I just haven't put the time in yet. Just don't, I got other things to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So,
just like any other job. They're just looking for people that are, they don't have, even though it seems like there's a lot of people in that community, which there is, they don't have enough. They have so much out there, so many simple things, so many simple bugs, that, have been exploited before, that there's not a lot that you have to do. I mean, they're not going to be like some high ticketed, like a $300,000 bug, but, most most of the time you can get away with getting a small reward for some of the things that are pretty commonplace.
No, for sure. And the more experience you have with it, the more you realize it's kind of the same thing over and over. I read a book recently that was the Bug Hunter's Diary, and it's all about like finding the user input in a program and seeing where the code messed up around that, and then doing like a bug overflow exploitation, and then just doing what you want from there. It's always kind of like the same thing. Just find the user input, find the vulnerability, exploit it, and go. So like once you have experience with that a couple times, you can do that anywhere. So
totally,
what book
that's
was that
exactly
again?
the pattern that I'm applying.
Yeah. So I think it's the Bug Hunter's Diary.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it in the other room, so I can't tell you the exact author, but I was reading that when I was traveling a couple months ago.
Yeah, that's the kind of exact pattern that I'm seeing in a lot of applications where I'm finding bugs. Like trusting user input is like always like the bane of every application's existence. At some point, they trust the user input for something weird and arbitrary, and that leads to some disastrous consequences.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting looking at like how like little cracks kind of appear in the applications, kind of like fortified walls, so to speak. They're usually like these little like weird logic bugs or something that can like trip you up really.
Oh yeah, and I think that's what it always comes down to, is some kind of logic that the developers didn't expect. So like even like Y2K that's coming back with the 2020 thing, their mitigations for just rolling things back a couple years. Some of that's biting people in the butt. So
totally.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems after a while it's always the same problems.
Yeah.
Just over and over again, the same issues.
Yeah.
But that's the magic of the industry, right? The gift that keeps on giving,
Yeah.
As long as we don't learn from our past, we'll be doomed to repeat it. Thankfully, right? Keeping the jobs alive.
Yeah, exactly.
Security, so I'm not going to complain too much.
For sure. Now, what kind of got you into InfoSec? Like, you have the web app like background. Could you kind of explain that story and your sort of origin story into InfoSec?
Oh man, that's actually a great question. So getting started really is mostly due to MISEC. When I was a student at Michigan State, I had a part-time job doing web development at a company on campus, and one day we got our database leaked. So like all the users, all the hashes for the passwords, and I was the one that got to dig into fixing that. And part of my researching, I was tweeting about what happened and stuff, and Matt Johnson from Jackson, so MWJ Computing, reached out to me and was like, hey, you should come to Jackson and come do a meetup. So went there, met up with him, Kate, and Chris, and instantly they're like, oh yeah, so there's these vulnerabilities, there's this, there's OWASP, there's that. Come do this, join our IRC, spin up a DigitalOcean server, and like threw everything at me in like one night. And I think we were sitting at the bar until they closed almost. And ever since then, it's been going to MISEC twice a month, volunteering however I can. So the RuCTF, starting up the Lansing chapter, helping out with the conferences. It's just been a lot of involvement with MISEC, and that's gotten me so far in my career.
Nice.
So that's really interesting. So like literally just like kind of the Twitter being initially, then finally going to the actual meetup. That's really neat. I haven't thought about looking for potential MISEC members on Twitter like quite yet, but that gives me a good idea.
Yeah. So, but it worked out well. Just I don't know. I think I was complaining about work, or actually no. It was Hackster Pancakes. I was talking to her first, and I think I was like sending her annoying DMs about like how to fix the problem, and then she told me about Gurkhan. I was tweeting about Gurkhan, and that's how I learned about Jackson. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
It's so interesting how people from just like your software development or development side, get into InfoSec because something like this happens to them and they're like, I don't know what to do, At least I've had a few friends myself who have been in development or doing some type of software engineering, and they switched to the good side.
Yes, get bit by the security bug, so to speak.
Oh yeah, it's addicting. So actually, so before I was working at OffSec, I was working at a place where I interned as a developer, and when I went full time, I was doing vulnerability management for them for a bit. And that was just, again, I was the developer that was poking all the security guys. So they sent me to work with the one guy that was managing all the vulnerability management results from like a third-party scanner, and I was just helping him out, and that's what I started doing full time. So
cool.
it's really just showing the interest in doing the research. So
yeah, the networking I think is obviously very important in the story there. I think that was a very smart of you to be focused on the networking, like especially like listening to people telling you like go to these conferences, like showing up to the local meetups. Like that's all like great ways to advance anyone's career, honestly. And that's how I met you. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, thinking about it at the time, like I wasn't doing it for my career. It was just, I'm trying to learn more. I need to do something. I always had an interest in hacking. Like, you see the movies and, crazy stuff happening and you want to do that stuff. But, when you get into practical stuff, it's a completely different thing. So, but yeah, networking's been awesome.
Yeah, I really like having. Oh, excuse me. Wow. Oh my goodness. Sorry. Oh goodness. What was I gonna say? Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. Well, anyways, let's change topics. Let's keep moving on.
Yeah, no worries.
Projects.
So I'm very curious about any other certs that you've gone after, or like your current experience with certs. Like what's sort of your Pokemon badge collection thus far?
Oh man, well, yeah, my Pokemon badge collection is a little embarrassing at the moment. So I'm on my 4th attempt for the OSCP, and I haven't gone back to it because I'm just doing all this at-home education, I guess you could call it.
Sure.
One cert I do have is the Security Plus. I got that at the end of 2018. Like that was like the last thing I squeezed in before the end of the year. I'm like, at least let me get this, prove I can still, pass A cert. And I got the Security Plus. So did that. Huge thanks to, InfosecCaptainAmerica. You had him on the podcast. I think it was the last episode, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, he did a talk in Southfield about like his training mentality. And like how he indexes everything in his books, takes notes, all that stuff. And we've been talking really closely ever since then. So, yeah, he's a huge help in me just, again, studying harder. So.
He'd be definitely a good study partner to have for sure. Someone to keep you motivated, keep the pace for sure.
Oh yeah, hard to keep up with, but he's a good guy. So.
Yeah, I can only imagine trying to keep up with him.
Yeah, he's definitely got his own collection of Pokemon badges.
You two are definitely very driven people. I see you guys doing a lot of stuff. Not saying that nobody else does, but I do see you guys doing a lot of stuff and staying on top of things. So that makes a good match.
Yeah.
Now, in that whole like story, well, the one thing that was kind of interesting was the 4 attempts at the OSCP. Could you sort of like walk me through like your attempts or like your study practices that they've changed over those 4 times, and as you'll probably need to round up something for the 5th to hopefully get it. And I have faith in you to totally be able to do it. Like I totally know that you can. So I'm just sort of interested to know a little bit more of that story.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So I know my first attempt, I was getting stuck on everything. I could get a couple like web vulnerabilities. I was able to get the buffer overflow examples done in the lab, and I thought I was learning a lot because you tackle the PDFs and the videos and you do all the exercises, but I think it wasn't until like the last 2 weeks of my 3-month access that I actually started playing in the labs correctly. So I wasn't surprised at failing my first one. The second time, I went, straight to labs. No matter what I do, just, hit the labs and, hit them hard. And I got further, but I was still reinforcing the things that I already knew. So like I took the web app vulnerabilities from, being able to do SQL injection to getting a shell. So it's one step further, but it wasn't enough to pass, of course. The third time, I tried to just go back to basics and start completely over. And there was a bunch of stuff that I missed or just didn't get to. I think at one point I just crashed. Like I got up to the buffer overflow content, and then like there's a whole chapter after that that I didn't even read the first time I went through it. So I'm like, okay, go back, learn this stuff. And then the fourth time, I just, I'm struggling with the Windows. I might have mentioned that earlier, but that's where I'm currently failing, is just how to get from a shell on a Windows machine to like a administrative user. And yeah, it's just, I'm not connecting the dots between what's really required. So like I know some of the things you can do in the Linux system. You're looking at the distribution, the version, and all that stuff, and you can attack the kernel. But when you get to Windows, it's a completely different thing you have to learn. So I got to start learning those tricks as well. So it's always the next thing. You get one step closer every time. Just for me, it's taken a couple attempts to realize that there's still one more thing before I'm going to be able to pass. So.
And now you didn't purchase any labs, did you?
What do you
practice labs for to learn the OSCP or to train for the OSCP?
No, I didn't purchase anything like outside of OffSec before that. So there's the PWK that comes with its own lab access, and that's been immensely helpful. It wasn't until after my fourth attempt that I started looking at the homegrown options. And again, that's just the list from TJnull. He's got a bunch of HackTheBox and VulnHub machines. So for VulnHub, that's basically like a mirror or a repository of a bunch of VMs that you can download and spin up on your own computer, and that's all free to use. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if that's gonna be enough, but I'm hoping it'll get me further still. So.
Which honestly, I give you a lot of credit for that, because not a lot of people can do that, can have that much dedication, and can learn from their mistakes and then go back and then have to learn a few more things because they didn't get to this point, and then once they do that and they realize they need to do a little bit more in depth and continue to kind of shape their learning curve. One of my good friends, he got his OSCP and his OSWE, but he purchased labs for thousands of dollars that go through everything in the test, which to me that's great, but I don't like spending money. I like the free option, and that's why I really like what you did, because you went with the free option. You didn't pay for it, right? And you're learning kind of on your own, so you probably will pick up a lot more than just learning from paying for it. At least that's what I've learned so far in my lifetime, is the fact that if I do it like on my own and like push myself to do it, I end up learning more and understanding it more than if I were to, for example, buy a lab. I did that originally when I was in high school for a competition I was doing. I bought a lab, and that was the worst thing I could have done, because it was I didn't learn like I do when I'm just freeballing it,
Yeah, you can't have it handed to you. You have to be able to manually walk through it yourself, and you're not just reading somebody else's work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's exciting. So I best of luck with you getting your OSCP. Is that the only one you want to get, or do you plan on moving on like in the future and having multiple, or?
Oh yeah, no, I want to go through everything I can. So every cert they offer, I want to, clean out OffSec first, and then I'll see what's next after that. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
I'm going for the Elite Four, yes.
Yeah, yep.
So stick with Pokemon references.
Yeah, you just got to keep learning, right? You want to be the very best, so take everything
exactly. Got to catch them all.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm excited for you, man. I really do hope that it comes out. Do you have like a time frame set inside or set in place?
Uh,
Excuse me.
no, not anymore. I used to just say like always get the OCP. There was one time I tried to do like a 5-year plan where I do a certain year, but yeah, my experience with the OCP has kind of blown all that out of the water. So I'm just focusing on what's next. I will admit that I tend to shoot myself in the foot where after I fail, I take it pretty hard. And I'm like, well, I'll take a week off from studying. I'll just reset. Maybe I'm burned out and I need to do that.
Hmm.
But 3 months later, and I'm still telling myself I need a break. That's just me being lazy. So you got to be careful of not stepping back too far because now I'm trying to dust off some of the cobwebs in between attempts, and you got to relearn everything. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Are there any other sort of like tips like that you've sort of like gained through your experience taking like the OSCP, which is like very known to be grueling? Any other things that you've sort of learned?
Oh man, I don't think anything that's too mind blowing. I guess for taking the actual exam, everyone's like, oh, it's a 24-hour machine. There's people, now it's proctored, so you have to have someone watching you as you're taking the exam, and you're worried about, you only have 24 hours. You got to be chugging Red Bulls and have a Mountain Dew IV stuck in your arm. But that's not the case. For me, it's always, get a good night's sleep before that, start with breakfast, try to start the exam like late in the morning so I can work late in the morning until like midnight and then sleep. And then you get a couple hours the next morning to finish out your 24. But I've never done a straight 24 hours. I've always been trying to focus on, getting food, getting sleep, taking breaks when you need it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget that, I guess.
Yeah. Definitely imagine having to pace yourself would be very, very key for that sort of marathon-esque event. Have you had taken the exam with the new Proctor video thing and without it? Like,
Yeah.
how has that experience been? Has it been basically the same?
Yeah, so I've done my first two was without proctors, and the last two were with proctors. And I besides having someone to chat to when you're just like, hey, I'm gonna take 5 minutes to run to the bathroom, or hey, I'm taking a 30-minute lunch break. They're all really understanding. They understand. They tell you like, okay, leave your computer running, or they tell you how to handle the situation. So it's not been highly impactful. I know when it first came out, everyone was worried about security and oh, they're gonna notice my Pokemon poster in the back of the room and they're gonna make fun of me. That's never the case. So yeah, I don't think it's that big of an impact.
Gotcha. Well, that feels good. Like I definitely remember seeing that Twitter drama, the InfosecCaptainAmerica Twitter drama about the whole being able to see the video camera, the proctor being able to see you during the whole thing. And it definitely like gave me like kind of a second thought about like whether or not I'd want to do it. But I guess it makes sense. Like in any other sort of like official test situation, you have a proctor that's there. So I guess it makes sense to have a digital proctor if you're doing this remote sort of exam,
Yeah, exactly. And again, if you were super paranoid, you were worried about your OPSEC, you could always, run a hotel room for the night and go take it in a hotel room that has free Wi-Fi, and then you're broadcasting someone else's room, not your bedroom or office or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
totally. And then does proctor have to be up 24 hours too if the person is?
I'm not sure about that. I think when I was taking the exam, I've had different usernames rotate through, so I believe they have like a shift.
That makes sense. Yeah, it makes a lot more sense to have shifts then.
Yeah, I don't think it's like one person butting up with you the entire time. Yeah.
Just imagine some people behind some computer screens and just chilling, playing some Pokemon, keeping an eye on some guys taking tests, some hackers.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure they have to be more involved. They can't be doing things on the side, but yeah.
True. But I'm just, I'm envisioning like this little picture of mine. Oh, that's exciting. I get the security aspect, right, of people being able to see you, but even in college now, I have to take proctor tests and they watch me, and sometimes I just kind of it's fine. I kind of gotten used to it now. I don't like the whole watching thing, but it's you got to do it in order to pass. So they kind of trap you in that aspect, and they don't want to make sure you're not cheating, and that makes sense.
Yeah, I
Makes complete
mean,
sense.
they had to take precautions for one reason or another, and this is just the point that we're at. So
Hmm.
we want the
Uh,
safe harbor, we don't want to be watched. So yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at the OffSec's certs, and now do you know much about their certs, about like the cracking the perimeter AWE and the OSWP as well?
I know a little bit about them. So WP is the wireless professional. That's an older course that's more about hacking, like wireless information between routers.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, AWAE is their advanced web exploitation class. That one they just came out with for individual purchases. Highly recommend if you're a web dev. I've actually had people in the company talking to me about trying to take that before I take the OCP again. Maybe it'll click better because it's more web focused. So there's that one, which is good. That's the OSWE. And then the last one you're talking about was I think
OSC.
more of the
Cracking the
CE
perimeter.
and the EE are both around like exploit development and more security researcher type certifications. And that's, the last ones that I plan on tackling. So,
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm interested to try, and I really want to crack into my OSCP here in the next like year or so. I really don't, everybody has this like thing like Security Plus is a great way to start off, and then you can move on to something else. But I really just kind of want to go just to shoot my shot for the OSCP, train for it a little bit. I already do HackTheBoxes and stuff right now, and I try to do as much as I can research wise. Um, but I'm so interested to see how intense OSCP really is. Like, oh,
yeah,
mm,
I don't know. I know, talking about like four failed attempts and it's some big giant hurdle, but everyone else that I talked to that had passed, it's not that much harder. I think the biggest difference is like, if you've taken the Security Plus before, it's a multiple choice exam.
mm,
You memorize everything for 2 weeks straight. You take a test and you pass with 70%. With the OCP, it's all hands on. You have to have practical knowledge of how to be a pen tester.
okay,
So
so okay,
yeah,
I
it's just a live environment, and it's a completely different mindset. You have to actually be able to walk the walk. You can't just memorize it.
I like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
see, I can do that. Multiple choice questions, like test taking skills myself is not it's not my forte. I'm not the best at it. So I'm better at walking through it and kind of uh, doing the actual exploitation or penetration testing, rather than, um, excuse me, rather than answering questions, business questions, and things like that, which I heard was like Security Plus. Like I can memorize it and do stuff like that, but I don't like to. I try to kind of like challenge myself. I think OSCP will be a good challenge, especially for the price.
yeah. No, it's a lot cheaper than Sands, but I think you get a lot out of it. And I still want to emphasize that it's more about getting you in the right mindset. It's getting you to learn that cycle of what you need to be looking for in a pen test.
Mm-hmm.
Again, info gathering, find the vulnerability, exploit it, go to the next box. And it, I don't want to say it's a beginner cert, but it's definitely like one of the first ones I would ever chase after before going to like anything else that a pen tester would go after. If you're doing blue team or management, there's other certs out there, but again, that's administration type stuff. You're not hands on. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's sweet. So, are you working on any projects that you can talk about besides OSCP or
yeah.
any?
Well, so one thing that I recently bragged about in a blog post was helping out with the last Kali release a little bit. So, one of the benefits of working for OffSec is that every quarter they release a new version of Kali. So, like this last one, 2019.4, They came out with like the undercover version, and they're redoing all the packages. They have a new theme layout and all that. So there's a bunch of changes to the graphics and stuff, which are nice. So if you guys haven't updated yet, I recommend that. But my job is to get cloud images set up. So I'm the guy that's updating the AWS offering. So if you go into the marketing and you spin up a VM of Kali, that's work that I've got to help out with. So I get to do that every now and then, which has been a blast. And AWS, Azure, and those are the two offerings that we're looking at right now, but always open to ideas.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's actually really, really, really cool. That's wow. I'm so jelly, or jealous, right? Because this is just like, as a kid, when I first installed Kali Linux, oh my goodness, it was like, yes, can I work here? Is this the place to work? Is this it? Is this heaven? That's exciting.
Yeah, I remember. I think back when I was in college and like looking for internships, I remember just going to the offensive security page because I knew about Backtrack. And I just sent their contact. I'm like, hey, if you need an unpaid intern or anyone to help out with or just do anything, let me know. And I never heard back. And it wasn't until I got the job offer that I'm like, oh yeah, I sent them an email like a long time ago and really helped the email service get wiped every 3 months and nobody's ever going to read that. But it's unlikely. But yeah, I don't know. So it's just a fun. I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely a dream company. Yeah.
Yeah. So now, I don't know if you're able to talk about this or not, but the Python, the whole like end date of Python and the new Python coming out, and how Kali had to change a lot of stuff around, and how they kind of released like a whole little statement about it. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I can try to. Depends on how specific you want to get. It's kind of, again, like going over the course offerings. I know a little bit, but it's not my day-to-day stuff. So as far as I'm aware, it's just trying to keep the tools up to date. If the projects aren't supported, again, everyone that's a developer has known about Python 3 for years now. They've known that it's going to end in 2020. If the people that built the tool haven't updated it, and it's just an old Python 2 tool, what's the worth of trying to get our small Kali team to maintain it, to make sure that the old versions work, when we can, just install a similar tool that's going to come out in a couple months that might do the same thing. So
yeah,
I think the biggest thing is just trying to keep up with the, I don't want to say modern tool, but like the stuff that has their own development team behind it. So we don't load down the Kali team that's trying to keep the packages and the themes up and running.
Makes sense. That's exciting.
Yeah.
I really like that.
And, another thing about Kali, I believe there was a blog post about this, so I'm not like giving any spoilers for the stuff coming out soon, but getting rid of root as default. We're going to have a low-level user coming out. That's going to be a big change, as it's going to cause a bunch of headaches everywhere.
Now, can you kind of explain that to me? Because at first I didn't really understand it, and then I kind of read more in depth into it. But could you like explain kind of like the what that actually means for Kali?
Yeah, so I can kind of give my understanding of it.
Okay.
We've always run with root, right? We've had one account on the system. When you install it, your default user is root, your default password is Tor, backwards, and no matter what you're doing, if it was like Burp Suite or one of the other tools, Metasploit, it always run as root. Can't tell you the historical reason why that is. It's just, if it was easier to have one user, if you're used to having sudo out of the box where you could just do anything on that because it's, it's a quick VM that you spin up and use. It was just always root. Now I think with us being built off of Debian, I think they switched to having a low-level user first, and we're trying to minimize our differences between us and Debian as far as how infrastructure works. So I think people have been asking for a low-level user because some applications don't need to run as root. And also it might be something with just how like permissions and all that work. So, now we're going with the times and having a low-level user and then also root. So
Yeah, totally. Running without root is uh, the cool thing to do these days. Like a rootless Docker, for example, like running things without root permissions. Like if it doesn't need to run as root, you lower your attack surface quite a bit when you drop the capabilities and run the application as these unprivileged users with capabilities that they only need to use. Maybe like cap net raw, so they can just read network packets that are raw from the interfaces or something along those lines. Like you can actually limit your scope of some of the problems that actually the offensive tools can kind of put you in, where you have like these default passwords or these sometimes insecure setups within the security tools themselves. So if the security tool gets popped and it's running as root, well, now you have a root shell potentially on the offensive security guy's box, which is not very nice. So if you did pop a shell, you'd want it to be a non-root shell in theory.
Yeah, exactly. It's least privilege, really. And I mean, think about it. If you're at a CTF, right, you tell a new college student, hey, spin up a Kali VM, enable SSH, and go jump on the network, go do CTF stuff. He never changed his password because you never told him to do that.
Right.
Now you got an inside man on that CTF team. So a bunch of reasons, but yeah, definitely least privilege and being security focused there.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of the Kali. We're not running as root anymore. Big fan. So good stuff.
Yeah, I'll be happy when all the headaches are smoothed out. So probably, I think it's coming out soon, but there's going to be some changes involved in fixing a couple things. So
right, yeah, people are going to have to add sudo su root to stop their shell scripts for sure. Yeah.
I like it. That's that makes sense now. I at first, I was thinking like the privilege aspect, right? And that some applications or programs were running as root when they don't really need to. But I didn't really understand it as much as you guys went in depth. So that makes a lot more sense. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
So go ahead.
Yeah, so I was sort of curious. So you were involved with the whole process of building out the VMs in the marketplace for AWS and Azure. Could you talk about a little bit how that whole build line, like the whole build pipeline, is set up a little bit, or at least give me a little bit of how that works?
Yeah. So in a nutshell, it's basically taking the ISO that you would download straight from Kali.org. I build that into a VM. I customize it to work with cloud. So, I remove the GUI just because most people are running it as a headless VM. Depending on which service we're talking about, there's a cloud setup package that we have to install, get it ready for wherever it's going. Then it'll do things like, set up the right network adapters. It'll add a EC2 user, which is a low privilege user for AWS. Just things like that to prepare the image and then package it up, host it to AWS, let them verify it. Every time we've had, their security team has just had a note for every time we have to do a release that says, this will flag every scanner, let it pass, because we have, ethical hacking tools. It's supposed to be there. It's not hacking us. So that's a fun part.
That's great.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much the hard part is just, getting through that process with AWS and then publishing it. And then that's pretty much it. Just keep all the details straight, do all the testing to make sure Metasploit doesn't break for one of the releases. And that's pretty much it.
Do you guys use any sort of tools for automated testing of the image?
For the earlier part, yeah, it's not what I'm part of. Most of the testing that I do is once the AWS is set up, I'm making sure or I shouldn't say all the tools. Some of the common tools that I personally use still work. So, I'll nmap scanme.org and I don't even think it's scanme.org, but nmap has a test domain and I'll make sure nmap works. I'll make sure Metasploit works. I'll make sure, I can hit the harvester and all that stuff, which is just tools in Kali that I've been experienced with. And if everything works, that's good enough for me. It's just very minimal smoke testing. A lot of the heavy gun testing is done by the core Kali team.
Gotcha. Cool.
Makes sense.
Very nice.
I like
I was working on a similar project at work and using AWS Marketplace. So I was just kind of interested how, and I didn't have to work with a raw ISO, just like using a VM that's already like the AWS like Ubuntu VM that's already built in, so you don't have to do any sort of magical setup. It's already set up and then, customize that. So I think that's really cool to start from the ISO and then build from that and then install all the things to make it cloud ready. I haven't gone through that whole ceremony process quite yet, but interested in doing that just for like kind of a learning experience. That's very cool.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been a big learning experience for me. It's something I'd never imagined myself doing, but I'm happy to help with. So,
yeah, nice.
That was really exciting. I'm glad you really like it. Even though we miss you over here in MISEC, we definitely love the fact that you have that.
Yeah. Well, I should. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but the only reason I left Michigan is for personal reasons. My fiance is working in a different state, so I followed her. If it was just work, I could have stayed home with you guys. So.
I got it. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
My bad. I thought you moved for OffSec, but got it. Makes sense.
Yep.
So now, did you attend GurCon or B-Sides this year?
Yeah, both actually. So, the three big cons in Michigan are Converge, GurCon, and B-Sides Detroit.
I did leave Converge out.
Yep. Yeah. Well, this year they split it up. It used to be the same conference basically, where B-Sides was the day after Converge, but this year they broke it up. Made it to all three. I like to volunteer again with everything MISEC gave me. I do the best I can to give back, and I've been volunteering at GurCon. I think 4 out of the 5 times I've gone since 2015. There was 1 year that I went with my previous employer, but volunteered there. Always had a good time. I was helping out the vendors, making sure they had everything they needed to, keep everyone happy. For B-Sides, I was actually an organizer this year, which I shouldn't brag about too much because, just busy with everything going on. I didn't get to contribute as much as I'd like to, but there's always hope for next year. But worked with an awesome team to get that off the ground and running, and excited to do it again next year.
Yeah, that's sweet. B-Sides was amazing. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to Converge or GurCon this year, but B-Sides was, oh man, absolutely great.
Really enjoyed it. I think that's the B-Sides is what actually like spawned the podcast for the most part. Yeah.
Awesome.
So it was really cool.
Yeah, I think it worked out well. I really like the smaller conferences because you get to be more close, I guess, with all the speakers and everyone there. You get a network easier. You don't have a sea of people that are just, bumping into each other. You're talking to people that you kind of met or you've seen on Twitter or something like that.
Yeah.
So do you have any recommendations for anybody who wants to go to a conference and maybe has never gone?
Oh, man. Find something local if you can. It's a lot easier to go to something in your backyard than it is to fly out to DEF CON for the first time. So definitely check out, the B-Sides website, see what's running. There's a lot of stuff that's probably within a couple hours of you. If you don't have the money for it, look for student tickets or call out on Twitter and just be like, hey, I'm a student. I want to bunk up with somebody. Again, that's how I got, well, I shouldn't say that's how I got close to Amanda, but that's a great way that I was able to build my relationship with InfosecCaptainAmerica. So definitely wouldn't trade that for anything. Going to conferences, just finding a way, forcing yourself to go out to those events are huge.
Totally agree. And I think with that, let's call the end of the podcast. I think that's a really good point to end on. Thank you so much. It was great having you on, James. We'll definitely have you on again. Whether or not you get your OSCP or not, we're going to definitely track that journey. So be prepared for that, listeners.
You guys again. This would be great. Enjoy being here with you.
Awesome.
Yes.
All right. Awesome. You guys have a great night.
You as well.
You too. Bye.
Bye.